Double bag alert, double bag alert, folks. That's right. Bud Dupree and Rashod Bateman get paid. Aaron Rodgers finally heads to the burgh. Has Anthony Richardson's time run out with the Colts? Joe Flacco gets grilled by his former teammate, and Deion Sanders defends Shaedur Sanders' professionalism, okay? All of this and more on the 81st episode of the Football Junkies podcast. I am your host with the most. I am your chief bagrodamus. I am your chief head of the table. Anything and everything related to the bag, conspiracy theories, trades, you name it, we covered over here at the Football Junkies podcast. I am your GM who currently is not on the team right now, but don't you worry about it, all right? Don't you worry about it, because guess what? I am all these things and more. But most importantly, the most important thing that you must remember is I am your host, Kale. You already know how these things are about to go. So guess what? On three, one, two, three, let's lock in. All right, folks, let's just get into the meat and potatoes of everything that is going on in the league right now. So, before we get into Aaron Rodgers talk, let's talk about the bag alerts, all right? So, Bud Dupree, outside linebacker for the LA Chargers, inks a 1-year, $6 million extension. He'll be making $6 million a year. And when we look at his stats from this past season, 28 tackles, 6 sacks, and 1 pick. A good team-friendly extension that doesn't really hurt the Chargers in any way. Bud Dupree is still a very productive pass rusher. Now, is he in that tier with the Myles Garretts and the TJ Watts and the Michael Parsons of the world? No. But he is somebody that can give you 6 to 9 sacks a season, which is still fairly good because you have Khalil Mack on the other side. I think the Chargers' approach when it came to pass rush was to have one expensive pass rusher and one cheaper pass rusher instead of having two very expensive pass rushers where one of them couldn't stay healthy and really wasn't living up to the contract, and the other one was exceeding his contract. I can't really hate the Chargers for it. I think it's a great deal. It does create a little bit more cap space for them. Maybe they're trying to create some more cap space so they can try to go after maybe someone like a Jalen Ramsey or a big player that they really need. I don't know, but only time will tell. But we have to talk about Rashod Bateman. That's right, receiver for the Ravens, inks a 3-year, $36.7 million deal. $20 million guaranteed, and he'll be making $12.2 million a year. When we look at his stats, 72 targets for 45 receptions, 756 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns, and 16.8 yards per reception. According to the 3013, 77.8 of Bateman's 2024 receptions resulted in either a first down or touchdown. That is the highest rate in the league among players with 40 plus catches. Now, he was one of 2 other players that had a 75% touchdown and first down rate. And the other 2 were A.J. Brown and Darnell Mooney. All in all, this is a really good team-friendly deal. This doesn't really break the bank for the Ravens, and I think this definitely creates enough cap space for them to go after either Jair Alexander or Jalen Ramsey. According to ESPN insider Jeremy Fowler, Rashod Bateman approached the Ravens this offseason for an extension and was denied initially and was given permission to seek a trade. Multiple teams were interested in Rashod Bateman, including the Cowboys, Packers, and Patriots, but the Ravens decided to give him an extension. The Ravens made a really good decision in not trading away Rashod Bateman just because of how pivotal of a role he plays on this offense. You were talking about somebody that when he gets the ball in his hands, it's either a first down or it's a touchdown. You're talking about a chain mover. You're talking about someone that makes big plays. You're somebody that gets the job done. Sure, he's not going to wow you with the stats and whatnot, but he is somebody that is a big playmaker for this Ravens offense. Now, when we shift things over to the speculative talk about, could they be possibly going after Jalen Ramsey or Jair Alexander, I will say this. Jalen Ramsey would be great for the Ravens simply because he is a AFC North style corner. He has the size, he still has speed, he's a willing tackler, and he can still hold his own against number 1 wide receivers, which you really do need at this point. I think a secondary that has Marlon Humphrey, Nate Wiggins, Jalen Ramsey, Kyle Hamilton, and Malachi Starks would be very dangerous compared to what they have right now. My recommendation for resolving this entire Jalen Ramsey situation is just doing a buyout. Because right now, there is no team that is going to be willing to meet the demands of the Dolphins. And I think Jalen Ramsey and his side understand that. So I think the best thing to do is to sacrifice a couple dollars, sacrifice some of your signing bonus, just so you get to dictate where you want to go. Because right now, the Chiefs can't make a move for you. The Eagles could possibly make a move for you, but that's risky in itself. So you don't have a lot of options if you want to try to compete for another title. Now, if you're just trying to play in a better situation, well, then by all means, whoever gives you the best offer, you go there. But if I'm Jalen Ramsey, if I want to end my career with another ring, I would fork over 10 to 15 million in part of my signing bonus Dolphins just so I can experience winning another Super Bowl. Because you're already a Hall of Famer. But wouldn't it be better to end your career as a two-time Super Bowl champion? Now, when we shift things over with Jair Alexander, however, his situation is a little bit more complicated just because in the beginning part of the offseason, there was a lot of rumors that, the Seahawks and the Packers were talking about trading for Jair Alexander. Then that fell through. And then there was talks of Jair doesn't want to be with the Packers. Then now it's just quiet. But if I'm the Ravens, I'm calling Green Bay just to test the waters, just to see exactly what's their asking price and if it's non-negotiable. If it's non-negotiable, then I'll just leave it alone. But if it's something that we can work on, then by all means, do it. Because at this point, Jair doesn't want to be with the Packers. He's let that be known. So it's just best that you move off of him. Now, with his contract, sure, you could restructure it. You can do a plethora of different things. But the question is, would Jair be willing to be a team player? Because either way you look at it, both of these players are going to have to make some type of sacrifice to be in a better situation. The question is, what are you willing to sacrifice? But if I am the Ravens, I am picking up the phone for both of these players. I'm trying to find a good sweet spot for a good deal between these two teams. And whoever is willing to give me the better deal, then by all means, I'll do that. Because you don't need a whole bunch of draft picks. What you need is ballers. You need playmakers. You need people that are closers. To me, personally, I would venture to say Jalen Ramsey will be a better option just because if Patrick Mahomes sees Jalen Ramsey on the field, he's going to have to change everything. He can't just play the same type of ball that he's been playing. And that's the same thing for any of the other AFC quarterbacks that Lamar and the Ravens are going to have to face. I just think the Ravens should just go and be aggressive and try to get one of these guys. Because if you do that, that will strike fear into all of your opponents. That would separate you from the Chiefs, the Bills, the Bengals, anybody else that everybody considers to be AFC playoff contenders. Otherwise, you run the risk of possibly having a major hole at corner that you may not be able to address until the trade deadline. I don't think you want to wait that long. So I would get this deal done as soon as possible. Now on to the part that everybody has been waiting for, everybody has been talking about for the past 48 hours, and that is Aaron Rodgers is officially signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He visited the Steelers this morning, did all the things that he needed to do, and now the contract is signed and he will be wearing number 8. So the deal is a 1-year, $13.6 million deal, $10 million guaranteed with a maximum value of $19.5 million and includes $5.8 million in playtime and team performance incentives, according to Adam Schefter. Now, when we look at his stats from this past season, 584 attempts for 368 completions, 3,897 passing yards, 28 touchdowns, 11 hits, 6.7 yards per attempt, and a 63 completion percentage. Here's the thing with Aaron Rodgers. Like him, hate him, whatever, he was the best option for the Steelers right now. Because going after Kirk Cousins is just a waste. You're going to be giving up too much compensation to get somebody who didn't play his best ball with the Falcons. And that's why he's in the situation that he's in right now. I also have to mention that, according to Adam Schefter, Rodgers was considered the third option. Pittsburgh tried trading for Matthew Stafford and was unsuccessful. And they also tried re-signing Justin Fields and were also unsuccessful as well. Here's the thing with all of this. Did I think the Steelers were going to be able to get Matthew Stafford? No. I think that was more of a tactic to try to get more money from the Rams. And of course it worked. Do I think Justin Fields was a legitimate option? Yes. But I think the reason why Justin Fields didn't re-sign with the Steelers was because, one, they didn't give him a guarantee that he would be the guy moving forward, and how they mishandled the entire quarterback transition process. I think if they would have gave Justin Fields a longer leash, he probably would have stayed with the Steelers. Because the Steelers loved Justin Fields. They wanted Justin Fields. Arthur Smith wanted Justin Fields back. But I think because they left a bad taste in his mouth, I think that's why he went to the Jets. It wasn't because of the money, it's because of the opportunity. Because we all know next year they're going to be going after the quarterback. So that puts someone like a Justin Fields in jeopardy. Because if you're not playing your best ball, guess what's going to happen? They're going to move off of you as quickly as possible, or you're going to be a backup. And I don't think Justin Fields wants to do that. And so this was probably their best option at this point. Granted, Mason Rudolph could definitely, win them some games, but I think Aaron Rodgers is still a dangerous quarterback. I understand all the intangibles, all the antics that come with him. I understand that. But when you put him on the field, he can still throw it. He still has that zip. He still has some juice left in his arm. So I don't hate the Steelers for it. Now, here's the thing with all of this. There's not a lot of quarterbacks past 40 who have been super successful within the NFL. So I was able to do a little bit of research, and let's just go a little bit of a deep dive, all right? So Drew Brees' 2019 season, he threw for 378 attempts for 281 completions, 2,979 passing yards, 27 touchdowns, 4 picks, 74.3 completion percentage, and an 8-3 record. Joe Flacco's 2023 season, he had 204 attempts for 123 completions, 1,616 passing yards, 13 touchdowns, 8 picks, 7.9 yards per attempt, and a 60.3 completion percentage and a 4-1 record. Tom Brady's 2017 season, he had 581 attempts for 385 completions, 4,577 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, 8 picks, and a 66.3 completion percentage, as well as a 13-3 record. Brett Favre's 2009 season, he had 531 attempts for 363 completions, 33 touchdowns, 7 picks, and a 68.4 completion percentage and a 12-4 record. So here's the thing. Aaron Rodgers is definitely going to be a difference maker for the Steelers. The question is how much? Because my ceiling for Aaron Rodgers at this point is Joe Flacco's 2023 season. If he has a season similar to Joe Flacco's, or maybe even better than what Joe Flacco did in 2023, I think it's a success. Another angle that we need to talk about is Arthur Smith now has a quarterback that attacks the middle of the field, which I think is great because I think it'll be able to really open up the offense a lot more, because I feel like last season the offense was very constrained because of Russell Wilson's limitations. Russell Wilson is not able to attack the middle of the field because of his height, and it clearly showed in a lot of games. So I think with Aaron Rodgers being familiar with Arthur Smith's system because he played under Matt LaFleur, I think there's not going to be a major disconnect with the play calling, because I feel like Aaron Rodgers is already familiar with a lot of the cadences and calls since he was with Matt LaFleur. And we all know that Arthur Smith was originally under Matt LaFleur when they were still in Tennessee, and then once Matt LaFleur left and wanted to be a head coach, Matt LaFleur wanted Arthur Smith to come with him and be his new offensive coordinator, but Arthur Smith declined and he stayed with Tennessee, and then he went to the Falcons, and the rest is history. Now, do I think the Steelers are going to go on the Super Bowl run? No. Do I think they're going to go to the AFC Championship? No. But I do think an Aaron Rodgers-led Steelers team could possibly win at least one playoff game. I think if they make one more addition to tight end and receiver, depending on who it is, I think this would take this team to another level. Now, me personally, I feel like Kyle Pitts would be a better option than Jonnu Smith, and let me explain why. With Jonnu Smith, he's looking for a new deal. And so most likely you're going to have to pay him between $8 to maybe $12 million a year. Kyle Pitts, on the other hand, if you wanted to, you could give him a short-term extension, because next year he's going to be unrestricted free agent, or you can let things play out, and then depending on how his season goes, then you can have those type of contract talks. But I feel like Kyle Pitts has a lot of upside to his game compared to Jonnu Smith. But I do believe that the Steelers are going to make a move and add both another receiver and another tight end. Because initially, when Adam Schefter put out that the Steelers and the Dolphins were talking about a potential trade for Jonnu Smith, I discarded. I didn't believe it. But then shortly after, Darnell Parham tore his Achilles, and then Adam Schefter puts out another tweet that says now they're engaging in talks. And so I'm like, okay, either this is going to work, or this is just another tactic for Drew Rosenhaus and his side to try to make the Dolphins give them a better deal. Either way, someone's going to be going to the Steelers. Now, I will say this. With Aaron Rodgers coming to the Steelers, I think this also creates some interest from other players who are still free agents to possibly come to the Steelers. I think people like Gabe Davis, once he's healthy, I think he may come back to the Steelers. I think Chris Olave may be interested in coming to the Steelers. I think maybe Keenan Allen or Amari Cooper or DJ Chark, someone is going to be interested of coming to the Steelers now. Because now you have Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Pat Freiermuth, Caleb Johnson, Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, Darnell Washington, another tight end that they're probably going to add. You have a lot of weapons for this team. And that's not even counting the defense as well. I think at best, this team could possibly win maybe 10 to 11 games. Now, if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, knocks on wood, hopefully that doesn't happen, I think at best they could probably win 8 to 9 seasons. But again, the Steelers are playing with house money because why? This is only a 1-year deal. This isn't something where, okay, we'll just do this 1-year deal and we'll see what happens next year. No. Aaron Rodgers is under the impression that this may be his last season. So he wants to end his career on the right foot, and I don't blame him for that. Now, I will say this. There is added pressure on the offensive line to make sure that they dot their I's and cross their T's for Aaron Rodgers, especially for someone like Broderick Jones. He now has a role where he has to play phenomenally well in order to protect Aaron Rodgers. It's different if you were still at right tackle. No one really wouldn't be saying anything. But because you're at left tackle, the pressure is on Broderick. Because if he doesn't have a really good season, the Steelers are going to move off of him. The Steelers are going to go in a different direction, and they're going to bring in another left tackle. Now, if we go on the analytical side, the Jets' offense last year was ranked 24th in the league, and they averaged 19.9 points per game, 310.3 yards per game, 5.2 yards per play, and 39 touchdowns. They were 16th in passing offense, and they averaged 218.5 passing yards per game, 5.7 passing yards per play. They had a 23.6 play action percentage and 31 passing touchdowns. They were 17th in rushing offense, and they averaged 110.7 rushing yards per game, 4.1 rushing yards per play, 17 rushing touchdowns, and had 46 rushes of 10-plus yards or more. I think with Aaron Rodgers coming to the Steelers, I think all of these numbers are going to increase. Now, am I saying this is going to be a top 5 unit? No. But I do believe they can be within that top 12, maybe top 13 range. Maybe even a little bit lower, maybe about 15 at best. But I do believe that this is an upgrade for the Steelers. Yes, I understand I was very critical with Aaron Rodgers and in past episodes. I understand that. I'm still not taking that away from him. He should have been here for OTAs so that he could be able to develop chemistry with his receivers, tight ends, and everybody else. But he will be here for mandatory minicamp, which starts on Tuesday, which he will be speaking to the media. So maybe we'll have a deeper understanding of why he waited this long and whatnot. But all in all, the Steelers are doing good business. And that's all that matters. And so now it's just a wait and see of what exactly this offense is going to look like. According to ESPN journalist Stephen Holder, Anthony Richardson will be out for the foreseeable future after re-aggravating a shoulder injury that he suffered in 2023, and he will be held out of mandatory minicamp next week. So when we look at this in its entirety, this may be controversial, but I really don't care at this point. I think it may be time for the Colts and Anthony Richardson to just go their separate ways. I just think at this point, they bit more than what they can chew, and they're starting to realize that. Since being drafted by the Colts, Anthony Richardson has only played 15 games. I'm just going to read to you his stat line from this past season. 264 attempts for 126 completions, 1,814 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 12 picks, 6.9 yards per attempt, and a 47.7 completion percentage. I think at this point, Shane Steichen, Chris Ballard, and everybody else has realized that it just may be time to move off of Anthony Richardson. And it really sucks because the Colts have a really good roster. If you just look up their roster, you will think, man, this team should be able to compete with the Texans. This team should be winning their division almost every single year. But that's not the case because why? They haven't had stability. You can have chaos in your tight end room, receiver room, running back room, offensive line room, whatever. As long as you have stability within your quarterback room, you will always have a chance to win. And the Colts have not had that since Andrew Luck's retirement. I'm just going to read to you the quarterbacks that they have had since Andrew Luck. Jacoby Brissett, Brian Hoyer, Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, Sam Ehlinger, Nick Foles, Gardner Minshew, Joe Flacco, and then Anthony Richardson. That is a long list, and some of those quarterbacks, they had to make trades for, and they had to give up a lot to get them. Here was the number one red flag for the Colts when it came to Anthony Richardson. He didn't have a lot of playing time in college. Out of all the positions in football, left tackle, wide receiver, pass rusher, inside linebacker, corner, safety, whatever, the one position that requires a lot of experience is quarterback. And we've all seen different quarterbacks who didn't have a lot of experience, how hard their transition was from college to the pros. And we see the difference when quarterbacks who do have a lot of experience, how they transition a lot more gracefully in the pros. If Anthony Richardson would have panned out by now, you're talking about somebody whose ceiling could have been Cam Newton. But at this point, I think it's just better that you guys go your separate ways. Now, if I'm Anthony Richardson, I'm either going to the Broncos, I'm going to the Vikings, I'm going to the 49ers, or I'm going to the Rams. I am going somewhere that has a head coach in place that has experience developing quarterbacks. Because right now, it's just not working with the Colts. And sometimes it happens. But right now, for one, you haven't been able to stay healthy. And another thing that's not really being talked about as much, but I feel like it definitely needs to be talked about is you quit on your team. I think if you were able to do a quick interview with all the players on the team from that past season where Anthony Richardson tapped out, and you asked them that one question, how they really felt about that, I guarantee you there would have been at least 20 to 30, maybe even 40% of the team that felt some type of way about it. Because offensive linemen aren't able to tap out. Defensive linemen really aren't able to tap out. There are some positions on the field that aren't able to tap out. And for you to tap out and then give the response that you did probably rubs some people the wrong way within the organization, within the locker room. So I think at this point, it's just best for the Colts and Anthony Richardson to go in a different direction. However, if they still want to make this thing work, I would say Anthony Richardson should probably transition into a Taysom Hill type of role, where you're just this do-it-all type of player. You're effective at tight end, you're effective at maybe receiver, running back, wherever they need you at, you're effective there. Because right now, your chances are very thin. And granted, I understand you have the intangibles, you got the athleticism, you got the arm, you got it all. But brother, your chances are very, very, very slim at this point. Because the signing with Daniel Jones was already the writing on the wall that they were already ready to move off of you. Because Daniel Jones, despite all the things we want to say about him, he may have a better chance of winning this starting job than Anthony Richardson at this point. I think from a Shane Steichen's type of view, I think he probably says, okay, I could probably work with a Daniel Jones better than what an Anthony Richardson. Sometimes it happens. But if I'm Anthony Richardson, I'm doing whatever I need to do so that I can be prepared for training camp and preseason. Because right now, you're at a disadvantage. So now you're playing a game of catch-up. Now I understand you really can't do anything with injuries. I get that. But right now, if you really want to prove to this organization and to the coaching staff and to the players that you are the guy, then you are going to have to make sure that you put your 1,000% effort into everything that you do, that you carry yourself like a franchise quarterback, and you take accountability and you do whatever you need to do for this team. Because at the end of the day, it's not about you, it's about the team. Team. Now let's talk about this whole Joe Flacco mentoring comments, because it's definitely caused a firestorm on social media, and it definitely caused a firestorm with one of his former teammates. So this is what Joe Flacco said, and I quote, I tend to try to be honest, and I've said I'm not a mentor. I play football. And in the quarterback room, there's a lot of times already. There's been already a lot of times where there's learning experiences, and I have a lot of experience, and I can talk on things, and hopefully they can listen. But it's not necessarily my job to make sure they listen to me. Hey, hopefully you have a really good relationship with the guys that are in the room, and you naturally want to do that. End quote. Now, I just want to add, this is what exactly Joe Flacco said. This is not what I said, okay? Just saying. Now, this is what Chris Canty had to say on his podcast called Unsportsmanlike. And I quote, mentoring a young player is only going to make that player better, which makes the team better. You're only as strong as your weakest link. The whole point of this exercise is that everybody makes everyone better. That's why you practice. You're making each other better. It's what you're supposed to do. You do that with the reps on the practice field, but you also do that by sharing points and notes in the film room. It's a ridiculous answer from Joe Flacco. There's no guarantee Joe Flacco is going to be healthy for 17 games, especially at 40 years old. It's stupid to not consider trying to do everything that you can to coach these other guys up. Nobody is saying you have to do your job at a lesser level in terms of performing on the field. But if you can happen to impart some wisdom onto these guys who you're spending 16 hours a day with in training camp, why wouldn't you do that? Just because you're mentoring doesn't mean you can't be the starting quarterback. His answer is nonsensical. I hate going so hard at one of my former teammates, but it's one of the dumbest things I've heard Joe Flacco ever say, end quote. My takeaway from both of these quotes is Chris Canty is right. Joe Flacco at this point in his career needs to serve a mentor type role to the other quarterbacks. Because what do you have to lose at this point? They're not going to cut you. They're not going to get rid of you at any point. Because why? You have been the most successful quarterback since the acquisition of Deshaun Watson. May I remind you, that 2023 season, Joe Flacco and the Browns was on a tear. If they continued with that momentum into the playoffs, they possibly could have made it to the AFC Championship. And I know a lot of people would say, well, you're capping, you're just trying to do clickbait. No. That Browns team in 2023 with Joe Flacco was pulling. They were doing their thing on both offense and defense. So I don't understand why you want to try to embark some wisdom and give them some nuggets that they can carry on for the rest of their careers. Your career is over with. You've done everything that there is to do. You're a Super Bowl champion. You'll probably get elected into the Ring of Honor, and that's probably it. So why wouldn't you want to show them, hey, this is what I do when I see this type of coverage. This is what I do to prepare myself for division games. This is what I do to prepare myself against this defense or that player. Doing those small little things will have a lasting impact on those quarterbacks. Because right now, they're looking for a mentor. Kenny Pickett can't be a mentor. Because why? Kenny Pickett has been on 3 teams in 3 years. Joe Flacco, on the other hand, he can. Because why? He's experienced it all. He's experienced the highs and lows of the National Football League. So why wouldn't you want to be the person that can show them, hey, this is how you carry yourself in public. This is how you carry yourself in the media. This is how you're able to curveball different questions that you feel like are a little bit sensitive. This is how you're able to curveball some questions that make you want to give a negative answer. All of those things are important. Yes, I understand the quarterback's coach is supposed to be doing that, but it hits a little bit deeper when you have a veteran quarterback in your quarterback room. I've seen some current players who have said, hey, listen, my first 2 or 3 years, I had a mentor. Von Miller, do you know who his mentor was? DeMarcus Ware. DeMarcus Ware used to get on Von Miller on every small little thing. And guess what? It worked. Because Von Miller is now going to go down in history as one of the best pass rushers of this generation. You are talking about somebody who could possibly be a first ballot Hall of Famer. All because he had a mentor, somebody to show him the ropes. It is important that as veteran quarterbacks, or any veterans despite what position it is, that you embark wisdom on the next generation. Because it's always about setting up the next generation for success. Sure, if you're still in your heyday and you're still doing your thing, you may not want to be a mentor. But if you're at the tail end of your career like Joe Flacco, there's no need for you to say, oh, I'm just here to play football. Okay, that's perfectly fine. Everybody's here to play football, but we all know within the next 2 or 3 years, you're going to be putting out one of those videos and saying, I'm retiring from the National Football League. Let's just be real here. It's not going to hurt you. If you embark your wisdom on someone like a Kenny Pickett, that will go a long way for him. Because you know why? Kenny Pickett didn't have a mentor. Shaedur Sanders didn't have a mentor. Dylan Gabriel doesn't have a mentor, but you can be that mentor. And that's one of the problems with a lot of these younger quarterbacks is that they don't have a mentor within the quarterback room. That's why you have people like Gardner Minshew and Jacoby Brissett who continue to get jobs, because you know why? It's not because of their play, but it's what they do in the locker room that matters. And so having someone like a Jacoby Brissett as your vet is great, because you know why? He's been a journeyman. He's been a Super Bowl champion. He's been through it all. And you can go to him as a well of knowledge for anything, for, life advice, for football advice, possibly financial advice. All of that stuff matters. Everybody says, oh, we're brotherhood, we're for each other. You're supposed to be for your teammates and whatnot. Well, guess what? This is part of that process. It's your job to make sure that the next generation is straight. And you wonder why so many players don't have no direction and do the things they do, because you know why? So they don't have somebody to say, hey man, you bugging right now. You need to relax. Hey man, you don't need to be out here at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Hey man, you need to have this giant entourage with you. That's when you have a mentor to tell you the honest truth about things, because you know why? Coaches are only going to tell you so much. But having a mentor, they're going to tell you the good, the bad, the ugly, the uncomfortable. They're going to tell you everything that you need to know, because you know why? They value you that much. And a lot of times they see themselves within you. So it's only right that you pay it forward. Not be an asshole and just say, I'm just here to play football. Now let's finally talk about this whole Deion Sanders situation. So Deion was on Asante Samuel's podcast and they talked about the whole Shaedur Sanders situation. So this is what Deion had to say, and I quote: they want to create these narratives and create these stories and then attach them to a kid that ain't never done anything wrong. You gonna tell me he had headphones on, Shaedur? Anybody know my son understand he's a professional? Like he's gonna go into a meeting with headphones on, end quote. Now, they did get into the whole Shaedur sliding in the draft, and Deion simply just had to say this, and I quote: it did hurt. It did hurt, end quote. I can only imagine how Deion felt during that entire process, just to know that so many different teams passed over his son. And there were a lot of teams that needed a quarterback, and they passed over him for one reason or the other. And just to see Shaedur just slide the way that he did in the draft was just mind-boggling to me. And I remember there were a lot of stories that were coming out and were saying that, he was butting heads with Brian Dable and he was doing this and he was acting cocky. And granted, I understand where a lot of people are coming from, and I understand that, Deion and Shaedur did not help their case when they go on, radios and podcasts and whatnot and talk about how we're not going to interview with this team, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. And then when the NFL draft comes around and everybody reflects how they really feel about you and your son, then guess what? This is the result. The NFL showed once again that guess what? No one is bigger than the shield. No matter who your father is, no matter the legacy that he created, no matter where you come from, no matter what school you went to, no matter your accolades in college, no matter anything that you have done, you are not bigger than the shield. But I'm going to end this episode here. If you guys like what you're listening, please make sure you guys download the episodes. Leave a 5-star review on anywhere and everywhere that you listen to podcasts. We're available on Apple Podcasts. We're available on Spotify, as well as RSS feed. And when you go on our RSS feed, there are multiple podcasting streaming platforms that are there in which we are available on. So go ahead and make sure you guys take a listen. For my YouTube people, Football Junkies Pod, all right? Football Junkies Pod. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, turn the notification bell on, leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, okay? Was I a little bit too harsh on Joe Flacco? Was I a little bit too harsh on the whole Deion Sanders situation? Let me know in the comments, please. Now, when you go on our YouTube, we have a link tree. When you click on that link tree, it'll take you to anywhere and everywhere that we have Football Junkies content. Now, for my TikTok people, Football Junkies Pod, all right? Football Junkies Pod. I did put out some clips not too long ago. I'll probably put out some more clips fairly soon. Just stay tuned for that. My Instagram people, Football_Junkies Pod, all right? Football_Junkies Pod. Junkies Pod is now what? It is together, not spaced. It is together, not spaced. Football_junkies pod. Now you could also follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, GMKale, GMKAILE, as well as Blue Sky, GMKale, KAILE. As always, I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys need. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. Stay tuned for the next episode. I'll probably give out the rest of my grades for the rest of the divisions that I have covered. I also will be taking somewhat of a small break, just for maybe about a couple of days, maybe a week, just so I can, prepare myself for my upcoming exam and just to, just take a breather and whatnot. So as always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. If there's any crazy news that happens between now and then, sure, I'll talk about it, but for the time being, not right now. I really do need to study, really do need to prepare for my exams. But just know, once I'm done taking my first exam, we doing gut check time. Yes, I understand the league will be on break for 5 weeks, but guess what? I'm still going to be feeding you guys content because we're going to be doing gut check time. That's right. We're going to be talking about who are playoff contenders, who's pretenders, who's Super Bowl contenders, all of that and more. Every single division, you already know we're going to be doing it. So guess what? As always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. Peace and love. This is your GM Kale signing out later.